Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Zach Kennedy, home marketing specialist and realtor in Birmingham, Alabama. And today I am actually in Jasper, Alabama, which is about 35-40 minutes from Birmingham. I am at a new construction neighborhood called Viking Cove. I recently helped a home buyer purchase their first home here. We sold a property that they inherited unexpectedly, and they used the payoff from that sale to purchase their first home. This new construction neighborhood was built by Promenade Homes. We are right off of a main highway in Jasper, about 5 minutes off of I-22 that will take you from Birmingham all the way to Tupelo. So this is a city, it's actually the city I grew up in. And this is a city where people do commute to Birmingham. The husband, my buyer, he commutes to Hoover, which is about an hour drive into Shelby County. So he'll take 22 and then hit Interstate 65 and go south to get to work. So it's a bit of a drive for him. But what's great about this neighborhood and really buying new construction in general is that builders are offering some pretty crazy incentives right now, which is a huge benefit for buyers in the interest rate environment that we're in. So just on the macro, interest rates have skyrocketed since 2021, 2022, of course, to more than 7%. And so that has caused inventory to shrink. That has priced a lot of people out of the real estate market. And so builders' response to this is to offer incentives to buyers. And the incentives that we received were my buyers received 3% of the sales price of the property to use for closing costs. For this particular home, they got it for $262,000. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home. So you have to go outside of the city to find a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home under $300. It's an incredible price for a brand new house. And they got about $7,800 from the builder to use for their closing costs. And you can use that money for your down payment or closing costs, whatever you like. In this instance, they use it for their closing costs, and they essentially got all their closing costs paid for with that 3%. So $262,000, 3% closing costs. They did an FHA loan. They used the payoff from their sale to go to that down payment. Depending on which loan type you go with, you can do as little as 3.5% down on an FHA. Conventional, you can do 3%. You just have to pay PMI, private mortgage insurance, until with a conventional, you get that equity up to 22% the value of the house, and then that PMI will drop off. So for these guys, buying new wasn't something we started with. We looked at 3 or 4 houses that were existing before, and they decided to go with a new construction house, mainly because of the incentives that were given by the builder. And traditionally, new construction accounts for 10 to 12% of home sales, but now that number has risen to 30%. So nearly a third of purchases these days are made on new construction homes, and that is really because builders have sacrificed their margins just a bit to offer buyers those incentives as mortgage rates have increased. So with this particular sale, the promise from the builder was that my buyer would receive that 3% closing cost for using the lender that the builder has a relationship with, but we were able to negotiate for my buyer to use their own lender. I can't promise that's going to happen every time, but it just goes to show you how willing builders are these days to just make something work. I was recently touring a D.R. Horton neighborhood in the Birmingham area. It was in Gardendale, and this particular neighborhood, I was actually shopping I'm getting married in October, so I was actually curious to see some new construction for me and my fiance. And what D.R. Horton was offering, they have their own lender. Um, they were offering a 4.99% interest rate to use the D.R. Horton lender, as well as $6,000 in closing costs, and I think like 1 or 2 upgrades if you closed within the next like 2 months. And those upgrades could include like a new fridge, either a washer or a dryer, or blinds for the house, or gutters for the house. So that's a pretty significant savings that you can take advantage of when buying new construction. And plus, there's the benefit of it being a brand new house. Um, no one's ever lived in it. They're really beautiful houses here, and they are all priced under 300,000, which is pretty crazy because these are 4 bedrooms and 5 bedrooms, and they're not huge houses, but that's actually a pretty interesting trend that's been happening in the last year or so. Is that like when the pandemic hit, sales for larger houses exploded because a lot of people were working from home or spending more time at home, or their children were spending more time at home, and people wanted bigger houses. But the trend over the last year or so is that people are actually wanting a smaller house, and that could have a little bit to do with the fact that energy costs have risen quite a bit since 2020, and people just don't need the space quite like they did when they were forced to stay at home. So some more interesting trends that are going on is the rise in construction of townhomes. I personally think that this trend will continue as we have an aging population that is going to be looking for newer places to downsize, but that won't require so much like yard maintenance and just more square footage to maintain. So we've seen new townhomes being built at a record pace too. So we do have some properties in this neighborhood that are for rent. So that's something to consider as well. For this particular neighborhood, I'll give you the stats. So again, this is Viking Cove. We are right past the new Jasper High School. Again, we're about 35-40 minutes away from Birmingham. So 48 listings in Viking Cove have sold at an average list price of $283,000. So average list price of $283,000 and an average sold price of $282,000. So let's see. The average days on market for homes in Viking Cove has been 60 days. And the interesting thing about Viking Cove is out of those 48 sales that have taken place in this neighborhood, almost a third, 15% or 15 out of 48, those buyers have received some form of seller concessions. And the seller concessions would be what I'm talking about with the builder offering like us 3% of the sales price to go towards closing costs. Or that money could also be used for like a mortgage rate buy down. So if you wanted to work with your lender to use that money, a mortgage rate buy down would allow you to temporarily buy down the rate that you pay on your mortgage, so it could lower your monthly payment for a couple of years. So about a third of these sales have included seller concessions, and the average concessions amount has been $6,700. So again, that's not something you're guaranteed when you buy a resale home. It depends on what the seller is willing to do. Of course, that all comes down to negotiation. If you can negotiate on the sales price, or it's built into the contract that you can ask the seller for a certain amount of cash to use for your closing costs or your down payment or a mortgage rate buy-down. So 139 Kings Way, that's the house we sold. I just saw the moving truck, so Elliot and Nicole are moving in now. They, at the day after closing, they took their kids to Disney World. So I guess they're just now getting back home and getting settled in. All right, so let's talk about the financing breakdown for this particular community. Of the 48 sales, 18 of these houses were purchased with cash. 21 were conventional loans. Only 4 FHA loans and 1 VA loan and 4 owner financed. So they worked out a deal to allow the seller of the house to actually hold the note. And there's a variety of ways that you can get creative with how you do that. These are really pretty houses. So the house that my clients bought was already completed, everything was done. It just was ready to sell. So this process was a lot like a typical resale transaction, where we weren't waiting on certain items of the home to be completed. We closed it in about 24 days, a little over 3 weeks, thanks to just awesome work by Elliot and Nicole's lender, just being all the way on top of things, and Elliot and Nicole for getting their documents in as well. So we treated this transaction very similar to resale, where we came and toured the home. Again, it was already completed. We put a contract on the house. We negotiated for that 3% of the sales price to go toward their closing costs. And then about 3 days after we got the contract on the house, we got the inspection done. We hired an inspector, a local inspector, who was familiar with the neighborhood. My broker just closed on a house in this neighborhood, so we used the same company that he used because he was familiar. And we got that inspection report back the same day, and there were some items that my buyer wanted to be addressed before they moved into the house. And that's going to happen with any new construction property, is you're going to have some things that need to be addressed. And for this one of the front posts on that front porch was it was leaning a bit, and so we got the builder to come and straighten that out. We got some vents put in that were not installed. We got some things painted that needed to be touched up. We got the dishwasher was not secured to the kitchen island, so we got that done. And then there was some vinyl on the side of the house that was buckling a little bit, so we got them to replace that. And it was really pretty easy, actually. When we presented the seller with the inspection report, they were very accommodating to come and meet my buyer and actually walk through the house and look at those items and come up with a game plan and a timeline on when to get those done. And they were really easy to work with, so I appreciate them for that. In the state of Alabama, we are not what's known as a disclosure state. So if you're someone that lives out west, or in some states in the Northeast, and in some places in the South as well, it's going to be a different experience when you buy a home in Alabama, We are what's known as a caveat emptor state, or a buyer beware state. And so the burden is on the buyer. The seller does not have to list any known defects with their home. It's up to the buyer to get a home inspection and identify any problems with the house, anything that needs to be fixed or is not working properly. And then we negotiate again after we negotiated to put the contract on the house. So in resale, this can be somewhat tense with trying to get a seller to fix certain items, because in our state the seller is under no obligation to fix anything that appears on the inspection report. So I appreciate the builder for being so receptive to what we asked for. They really wanted to facilitate a deal, and we appreciate that, especially when you have first-time home buyers. It's already enough of a stressful process, and it can be made worse in resale if you have like a stingy seller. So that made things really easy for us. So another reason that people are really open and receptive to looking at new construction purchases right now is that renovation costs since the start of the pandemic have risen pretty dramatically with material and labor costs. And so when you're looking at buying a resale home, there are times that there are maybe like you're buying like a home that's a little bit dated, and you want to change out like countertops in the kitchen, or cabinets, or take out carpet and put down new flooring, or you want to redo like the primary suite or the primary bathroom or a deck, or finishing out a basement. Those things, the cost for those things have increased pretty dramatically since the pandemic. And in fact, the average cost of a renovation has grown to about $40,000. And that takes into account some higher end luxury renovations as well. So that number is a bit higher than you might expect, and that's why. So what's really interesting is the cost differences, like the median sales price in the US right now between, get my camera right, the median sales price of existing homes is around like $390,000, and the median sales price for new construction in the US is up around $430,000. And so that is a difference of about $40,000. And so when you have that difference in the price, lots of people are electing to go with a new construction home rather than renovating a resale home, because if they need to do any extensive renovation to a resale home that they're buying, then the average cost of that renovation is about the same as they would pay for a new construction home. So builders are, I think, encouraged by that. Most builders are optimistic about their business going forward in 2024 and beyond. In fact, most builders say that they are actually going to be increasing their inventory of new builds by about 10% this year. So I do think that new construction will continue to be a popular choice for buyers that don't want to do those renovations themselves, and that do want to take advantage of certain incentives that builders are offering. And just about every builder that I've talked to around the Birmingham area is offering some form of at least one incentive, and sometimes multiple. Like I said, that the D.R. Horton neighborhood that I toured recently was not only offering help with closing costs. They were offering $6,000 in closing costs, but they were also offering less. It was like a 4.99% interest rate for using their lender. So that is a significant monthly cost savings. It's going to save, if you're looking at the differences in 4.99 and 7.2% on your monthly mortgage, that's several $100s, and plus you could get $6,000 for your closing costs, and depending on your loan type, $6,000 will just about cover, should cover all, if not probably 85 to 90% of your closing costs. And so when people are, scrounging up every bit of money that they can, that is a huge savings to keep cash in their pocket. And that's what I would typically recommend to people, even in, during inspection periods, is, let's figure out the best way to keep more money in your pocket, especially right now, rather than financing those things at higher rates. And so I recently had a home seller that I went on a listing appointment with in Lake Wilbourn in Hoover, that they had a plan of building a new home in Bradbury, just down the road from Lake Wilbourn. They were going to build a new home and then sell their home. We were looking at about $650,000 for their list price. But the husband, I guess, was watching too much on the news and got nervous about the market and what things, what was really kind of coming down the pike. And so he kind of freaked out, got cold feet, and said, we're going to put this on pause right now because we're not sure what the market is doing. And so I was able to talk to them briefly and just explain, I'm not making any predictions here about what's going to happen to the real estate market, but I do think that, I don't see any signs that the interest rates are going to shoot down at any point, because inflation is still higher than the Fed would like. I think there are some people rightly estimating that the Fed might change their mind on 2% inflation being their target rate. They're thinking maybe the Fed will change their mind and think, okay, well maybe 3% is not so bad. So with that being the case, I really don't see interest rates coming down in any significant way in the near term. I think some people were estimating 5 or 6 rate cuts this year. I don't see the Fed, barring any political motivation, of feeling that it's beneficial to drop rates, because if they, as soon as they cut rates, then money gets a little cheaper, and then inflation is just going to continue to go back up. And so I think they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place right now with what they should do to battle inflation. And so I really wouldn't count on, if you're considering buying a home in 2024, I really wouldn't count on interest rates falling in any significant amount. So that's why I'm out here showing you this new construction and talking about the experience that my buyers had, getting a really good deal in a high interest rate environment. And so the best thing we can do is just figure out the best way to operate within the market that we're in. And as far as I can tell, buying a new construction home, if you're interested in buying a home, you should at least consider it, because the incentives are there, and these are well-built homes. It's exactly what my folks needed, and they're really excited about it. So I appreciate you touring this neighborhood with me. If you have any questions, whether you're looking in the Birmingham area or not, about what it's like to buy a home in 2024, specifically new construction, I'd love to answer any questions that you have. Hope you learned something. There's links all in the description of the video if you want to see any new construction around the Birmingham area. If you have questions, just reach out. Thank you guys for watching. Would appreciate it if you'd like the video, share it with somebody that you know that might be considering making a move this year. Would love to help them. And as always, and subscribe for new videos coming out. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.